For us, we define contextual as, technology that uses all of the signals in an environment. That's the text, that's the images, it's the video, it's the audio, really understanding that entire digital environment. That gives us that ability to think about how we can place the right message in front of the right person for that brand. And so we go well beyond what currently is being used today, which is the typical tactics like keywords and things like that, or these very archaic, like always on or always off brand safety tools where we're like turning something on or turning something off. For example, the Ukraine. What an awful situation to be in, but we're still using archaic ways to run away when there's still really important content that we could be maximizing and advertisers could use to really showcase who they are. So with that, it's the perfect segue into your other question, which is why we've built the mindset matrix. To us, the mindset matrix is a framework that the entire industry has to really think about and we believe get behind and ultimately should be their foundation. And it is bringing in together three key things. It's contextual, it's creative, and it's attention. And we need to contextually be able to find that right environment, understand for a consumer, a person, what are they doing in that digital moment, right? And with all the emerging digital environments coming up in game, we see Peloton just launched a game. We're seeing continued growth in VR. You have Meta. If we're not leveraging technology first and foremost, that is the contextual best to understand that environment, we've already lost. And then the next phase to that is then we've got to find more equitable, fun, and creative ways to reach that person when we know where they are. And so creative becomes at the forefront of a huge opportunity for advertisers. I think it was the University of Chicago, and that says like there's like 6,000 ads that people are seeing every day. So what we've gotten accustomed to is just across digital environments, slapping things for just some really quick action isn't working. We need to find creative ways to stand out in that digital environment. And then the third component to that is then attention, is really understanding that how am I going to get that person's attention? And so if you really take a step back, if I understand the environment of that individual, I have all of these creative tools in my toolbox to pull from, to find that moment, to grab that attention and stand out. That is the foundation, and it doesn't use personal data, and it doesn't need to worry about regulation and all the issues that we're having. Hopefully that helps frame that up a little bit for you, Rob, but it's definitely an exciting opportunity to think about how we can really take a step back and fundamentally do what we know we need to as an industry to really support the future generations and all these emerging digital environments in the right way.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about this idea of mindset. So much of digital advertising and advertising in general relies on behavioral signals, but you're talking about mindset. How do brands adjust their thinking in this kind of environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first, they have to adjust their thinking in several different ways, but it's really critical. And I think it's not just an option. I think it's a necessity. I think we're not going to argue, and Rob, I'm sure you'd agree, we all know like cookies and identifiers, mobile IDs, aging out, trust in big tech, people are cratering, people don't trust it. The attention economy, just getting back to basics, is here. Regulations is rising. Ad fatigue is real. So many ads, consumers see so much. So the real truth is, what can a brand and advertiser do to navigate this? Well, they're in an interesting time. Right now, it's creative. Creative, once you understand contextual, can really help you really be at the forefront of what your consumers want to know about your brand and what you want them to know. So let's take, for example, what we're dealing with right now. Everything related to this awful atrocity of the Russian invasion into Ukraine, you are really getting an opportunity for a brand to understand the contextual environments. There's a lot of safe, unsafe content out there, but they can use what they know. They can use what they know to create creative messaging that can show who they are and what they're about and change their alignment, right? You can see this opportunity. And so now, not only are you having an opportunity to just show who you are, on the flip side, if you're not running contextual and you're still doing behavioral or audience, you're going to run into the challenges and the issues just like Applebee's did. And this is where brands should be concerned. Brands are running away from content because they're afraid. But the brands who are using a best-in-class contextual tech and looking at it from that lens, who are using it to support as opportunities to find a way they can creatively express themselves to their target person, to their target consumer, are going to ultimately win. And that's where we think from contextual techs like GumGum's, MRC accredited, we've been building this for 14 years, there's a huge opportunity that, you know, we believe we have a solution for.
Yeah, well, let's see, 14 years. So your company's been around almost as long as the smartphone. And
right.
So
it's a great,
that brings me that brings me to my next question. We see this phenomenon of second screening, and advertisers are more concerned about attention. I'm curious to hear what you think about attention, why it's such an important metric, and how do you measure it?
Yes, well, I think you nailed something first when I say we've been doing this for 14 years, people are surprised. Because what's funny is everyone says they're contextual, Rob. Come on, you have to admit, everyone's like, all of a sudden companies that weren't contextual are contextual. To be honest, it drives me and just the team crazy, because we've been building this proprietary tech that's MRC accredited for 14 years. That's billions and billions of data sources to create our AI technology to be so good. And I think that is indicative in the results and all of the great success from our amazing partners. But I think from that, it's because we've been able to use this incredible tech, marry it with creative to get to your next point, which is around attention and being able to stand out and really understand that attention is waning. We have Gen Z, for example, that is so immersed in digital environments, whether that's no longer just a desktop and a phone. It's a desktop, it's a phone, it's a tablet, it's a VR headset, it's their gaming consoles. And so when ads are popping up, they're just leaving and going to other places to continue across their journey. And so, you know, viewability, ads that are viewable, maybe is a slight proxy, but it's just repeating what we saw when programmatic ads were running below the fold. Viewability isn't the answer. People are walking away. Right? We see in CTV, Rob, how many ads have gone into CTV? We're still skipping it. And I could go on and on, actually, if you really wanted to know, even in CTV, we ran so fast there as an industry. The safety issues are mind-blowing. I was just watching an ad where I won't say the brand. There was literally a murder scene. And then right next to that was the ad of a client running in CTV. And I'm like, how are we still here? And I think this is where we're focusing on attention, but you've got to focus on the right attention, and you still got to make sure it's the suitable content that makes sense for your brand, right? And that you're putting money into these pieces of content that are truly content. It's not ad, it's a content. Even a standard display should be perceived from a brand as a piece of content, not an ad. And what is the equitable exchange of value for that consumer's attention? In engaging with that content, and we need to get there. And I think that's where you're seeing this attention economy highlight. It's what can I do to add value to you and get that really, really sought after attention.
Historically, advertising is really focused on measuring reach and frequency, particularly in television. I'm kind of curious how the mindset matrix fits in within that kind of measurement, reach and frequency.
I think that's one of the things that the industry is really challenged with, is how do they really approach reach and frequency and measure that effectively? And I think that's something that the industry is still working through. You'll see a lot of the governing bodies work through that. But I think this is going to boil down to also reach and frequency as it relates to different creative messaging, and the ability to create an experience across multiple digital environments can mean different things. You don't want to continue to see and hone in and beat the drum over and over with the same branded ad experience to me as a target consumer. However, you can reach me in multitude of different ways across different environments with different creative and different messaging. Again, fostering, the ability to like really foster that connection between the brand and the consumer. So if I am on a desktop, if I am on a mobile device, if I am playing a game, if I am in Meta, or I'm watching CTV, how are those ads and those creative experiences actually adding value to me, right? Even if you've touched me multiple times. But I think that's going to be one of the areas that we're going to have to really watch how that evolves, because it's going to be very, very critical. because you don't want to over-index too much on that. But if you can create new creative experiences, I think there can be a lot of added value to increased reach and frequency to that target audience.
Okay, so finally, looking ahead, I'm curious to hear what you think about the future of digital advertising and how your framework fits in with that.
Yeah, I think this is the future of digital advertising. I think our solution from contextuals tech that we have, which is the best in the world, we can have stats all day and share those with you. And I think because of that contextual technology, it really becomes the future-proof basis for a brand to really hitch, and attach their cart to that horse. I mean, contextual from the standpoint of every digital environment and just closing your eyes and knowing what's going on from a technology perspective without the use of personal data. I don't know who can say that they wouldn't want that for their children, for future generations to come, and that that's not going to be something that they demand. And when you combine that from a mindset framework perspective with the creative and the attention, then you're really at the thesis of how you build a strategy, really thinking about that. It's how do I know what's going on in that digital environment first and foremost? What technologies exist? How do I A/B test? How do I understand? How do I use suitability and really hone in on finding what's going on there? And then how do I then tap into the creative tools that I have that can actually use all of those signals to create smarter, more effective, more dynamic, more equitable, and more interesting and exciting creatives that ultimately grab that person's attention and grabs that person's attention without being disruptive, without forcing it, with making it feel integrated and part of each of their different journeys in any different digital environment that they're currently on. And I think that's going to be the key. And I think we'll continue to watch more and more of that. You'll see larger brands shifting budgets and literally coming out and saying, we've sunset audience, we're going only contextual. I think that's only a matter of time. And for us at GumGum, we're seeing everyone in our industry, for us, we've made our technology and our API available. So we're partnering with the publishers, with the holding companies, with the brands directly outside of our solution to help champion this forward and help give them the best in class contextual data to help move this forward, because I think this is the answer, this mindset focus. So that's where I see it happening. And I think you see it being applied to a lot of these newer digital environments.